So straight away, you are saying to yourself, Simon, what is this bizarre location you are coming to us from today? Well, look, sometimes Simon has to go away, because believe it or not, I don't just sit there and watch professional wrestling and give the good bits and up and the bad bits are down. But Simon also has a portable filming setup, and that filming portable setup may have had a few issues to the point I've been trying to set it up now for around about an hour, and things aren't just working, so I decided, you know what, we're gonna go old school, we're gonna set the camera up, and we're just gonna hit record, and you can spend the whole video going, well, where the hell is he? And you're never gonna know. But we do have an episode of Impact Wrestling to talk about, so yes, my name is Simon Miller, the king of ups and downs. Clearly, I mean, where the hell am I right now? You don't know, we already established that, but let's find out whether it deserves an up or whether it deserves a down by using this, the finger of power. Let's just get on with the show. Fair play to Impact Wrestling because they are always willing to take a risk. Because not only did they start a match on their pre-show, which then led into Impact, but it was also an Iron Man match. And you know the deal with Iron Man matches. Sometimes it's like, oh, it's too much for my brain. But Impact Wrestling didn't care and they put it into their wrestling canon and they shot it into our face. Furthermore, Josh Alexander and DJP, as they did battle for the X Division Championship, absolutely smashed it. And there were other elements to this too, because halfway through the roster just walked out because they were like, well, this is so good, I want to make sure I see it up close and personal. And every single thing that Impact did made it feel like a major event. There's also been loads of rumours that Impact is about to put a real spotlight on the X Division, and if this was the way to kick it off, well then you get a very ridiculous round of applause, but you also don't just get it up, you getting a golden up. You should absolutely go out of your way to watch this as well. And I know Iron matches can be a bit difficult because of course you know exactly when the finish is going to happen, but these two guys could not have done any more. And in the early going, they started slow for obvious reasons, but there was also a miniature story. Because Josh Alexander was going after TJP's arm, but TJP was like, well, I'll attack your head, I'll attack your arm, I will pretty much attack anything that dares move in my direction. Of course, this is professional wrestling, so the first fall came with the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the surprise roll-up. But both of these dudes kind of traded around about 82,961 of them until Josh Alexander had more devastating power down in his tum-tum, and he got the 1, 2, 3, and if you can believe it, we didn't have another fall essentially until the very last second of the match. But it's not like this was boring because we kept adding little layers to it. For example, at one point, Josh Alexander could have gone 2 up if he had allowed TJP to be counted out, but Josh Alexander is the good guy, so he's not going to do that. But later on, TJP had Josh Alexander on the outside. He was like, I don't care if you get counted out. But sadly for him, Joshy boy got back in at 9. You could just tell that something was going to happen as we did reach the hour mark though, because Josh Alexander had the ankle lock on TJP for around about 792 years. Like I think I saw a dinosaur at the start of this one, and by the end, they had become extinct. But then yes, from nowhere, and I did chuckle at this a little bit, TJP was like, well, I'm a professional wrestler, I will use the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, and he used a surprise raid-up thingamajig. It kind of ties into that topic, and he honestly went 1-to-1 with what, half a second to go? It was pretty good. So we went into sudden death, and you know when it does come to sudden death in Iron Man matches, you just gotta get to the finish as quickly as possible, because fans are a little bit like, well, I've seen a lot of this now, I'm happy to move on. So Josh Alexander hit the divine intervention, he went up 2-to-1, or essentially he was the victor, and seriously, was this the best match of the week? Right now, I'm saying yes. We didn't even rest there afterwards because Josh Alexander was in the back saying, damn it, I'm the king of the mountain because Kenny Omega has stolen our world title, which means I'm pretty damn important. And then we kept putting things on this because essentially the whole roster was going to Scott D'Amore saying, well, I'd like a shot at the X Division title. So Scott D'Amore's going to have to think about it, and soon we will have a brand new challenger. Throughout all this madness as well, we also had a segment with Don Callis and the Good Brothers, and essentially all these guys are going to try and manipulate both Sami Callihan and Moose, because later on Sami Callihan and Moose are going to have a match. And of everybody you're going to try and manipulate, I wouldn't go after Sami Callihan and Moose, who I'm now going to call Sam, because you know, Sami and Moose, I'm a moron. You know what we did right after this too? We had Rohit, Raju and Jake something in a tables match. And I'll be the first to say sometimes wrestling promotions can give us too many stipulations, but this was like taking adrenaline and just shooting it right into your eye I was having a great time. Slightly fired up by what they've just seen and not wanting to drop the ball either. These two guys just kicked the crap out of each other, including Rohit Raju, who got a chair, and my word did he waylay Jake something. Hilariously, that wasn't enough for him, so he also booted Jake right in the balls, and if the idea here was to make me look at Rohit and go, you are the biggest dick in the entire world, well, mission accomplished. I now think he's a dick. Something also got stomped through a bunch of chairs, which was absolutely sickening. But this must have activated his no I'm pissed off gland, because afterwards he just went nuts. Like he totally no-sold another chair shot, which I admit doesn't make any sense, but it was absolutely badass. And then he speared Rohit through a table. He got the victory. And I'm going to tell you this. If you now want to do Jake something versus Josh Alexander for the X Division title, you will not hear an argument from this bald idiot. Honestly though, what a fantastic way to start Impact. W. Morrissey was then shown talking to Scott D'Amore saying, can I have a match with Rich Swann please? Which was all fine because early in the day, Rich Swann had gone to Scott D'Amore and said, oh, can I have a match please? So we were going to do that later, but I knew something was up. And then we saw Havoc talking to Rosemary. Now, of course, Rosemary's about to challenge Gianna Perazzo for that title, but Havoc isn't pleased about this, so she said she wanted to get involved, and Rose was like, well, yeah, if you want to do that, you're going to have to go through me. And kind of bizarrely, they're going to have a match later, but we'll talk about it. We then went to this W. Morrissey and Rich Swann matchup, but actually we didn't have a match and it was an angle instead. And this did make sense to me, because I was like, well, they've kind of been building that up for ages. Why would you just do it on Impact when you got a pay-per-view around the corner? So now I'm guessing we're doing it at a pay-per-view. Because just as Swann was making his entrance, the really tall guy that you can't teach was here, and he just kicked the crap out of Rich Swann until Willie Mack had to come out with a chair and be like, you stay away from him, man. I don't want you hurting my friend. Morrissey was super happy with himself though, as if he'd just come back from art class as a kid and his mum had gone, you've done a really good job with that. And yeah, I'm gonna guess, at against all odds, we do have this contest and it will be fine. We've done a really good job with W. Morrissey. Rich Swann is just established as a main dude in Impact Wrestling. It was all right. Brian Myers was then giving Sam Bill his first proper lesson into how to be a professional wrestler. And I will tell you this, if Impact treats this correctly, this could be kind of good. Because he told him he needs better clothes and told him to get a better entrance. And Brian Myers was so good here, like I say, we may have a little something something. And if Sam Bill comes out the other side as a really good professional wrestler, well, you may even have a nice little dude tag team here. So we will keep an eye on it, but I am intrigued. Gianna Perazzo was then responding to all the nonsense that had happened earlier, and this did not go well for her, because she was told, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a match between Havoc and Rosemary, and if Havoc wins, she's going to be inserted into your against all odds match, and it will be a triple threat. And then Gianna was like, I'm not surprised, the office is against me. They're always stacking the odds, not in my favor, which surely means at a pay-per-view called Against All Odds, she's got to win. And maybe Phil Collins will be there. Then I got confused, because for some reason it was Jordynne Grace and Rachel Ellering taking on Fire and Flavor for the tag team titles again. So I presumed, okay, while this doesn't make much sense, I guess we're gonna do it because we're finally gonna get the big turn when Jordynne Grace drops the ball again and she can't handle it and she takes out Rachel Ellering, and then we can move forward nicely and swiftly. But we didn't do it. And it was good. These four worked really well together. And it was Jordynne Grace who got the hot tags. Like, oh my God, come on, Jordynne, you got to get over your confidence issues. But she didn't. She took the fall again after succumbing to a double team move thanks to Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz. And while she was notably upset afterwards, we then just cut to the next segment. So Jordynne will of course eventually turn, and maybe we do it at the pay-per-view, or maybe we do it even next week, so you do the match at the pay-per-view. But I felt like because you had this on the show, you needed to pull the trigger, and we didn't pull the trigger, and we didn't pull the trigger, you gotta get it down. Sami Callihan then cut a promo about tonight's main event. He was basically saying the same stuff that Moose was saying, and that kind of worked out, because then Don Callis arrived, and as I say, he was like, manipulation, manipulation, but you're not gonna get inside Sami Callihan's head. He's already crazy. We also find out that the former Steve Cutler from WWE is going to be debuting in Impact soon as Steve Macklin, I believe his name is. And good for him. I always like to see people have a job. I hope he does great. Rightfully so, then we were backstage with our tag team champions, and they were telling Scott D'Amore, excuse me, we would like some new challengers because we keep going round and round and round and doing the same thing. And I was completely in their corner. They do deserve someone new. From nowhere though, Scott just went, okay, well, I don't think Kimberly and Susan like you, so we're just gonna do that match at the pay-per-view. I was like, man, can't we just have a little bit of a story? Can't Kimberly and Susan at least win a match and then say, we want the tag team champions? I mean, this wasn't bad. I just like a bit more of foundations being planted when it comes to my wrestling. Next up was New Japan's Kojima taking on Cody Deaner, and I especially like that because it rhymes. Now, because I'm a moron, I was like, wait a minute, I thought this was going to go down against all odds, but of course, that's Kojima versus Joe Doring, so we get 2 matches with this guy, and that made me very happy. He won here, of course, too. Imagine if he hadn't, I would have taken my bread and just chucked it out the window. But they had a pretty decent match. Kojima hit a lariat. 1, 2, 3, we were done as getting it up. Violent by Design kept trying to get involved because they're absolutely obsessed with doing that. But Kojima didn't really care about any of them, other than Joe Doring, for all the reasons we just made clear. But just as VBD, which sounds like a disease, were about to do something bad, Eddie Edwards, the always proverbial good guy, was out here to balance the score sheet. That's when Kojima was able to hit his move and he got the victory. I was then absolutely terrified by the time Cody Deaner got backstage. Eric Young was just going to get his testicles and chop them off because Eric is never pleased when his guys loses. But I did some research on the internet, and even though I found some horrible images, I don't think it happened. Just realised I got my Sami Callihan and Moose promos mixed up. You can tell I'm having one of those days because it was here when Moose said, hey, I'm going to win in the main event. And Don Callis was like, manipulate, manipulate, manipulate. And Moose looked at him like, if you even come one step closer, I'm just going to rip off your head. And you know he could do it. A bunch of madness then happened with Violent by Design. I mean, these guys. Eric Young was losing it about what Eddie Edwards had done when Decay walked up and they were like, hey man, why don't you guys invoke the Freebird rule so we can have a tag team title match at Against All Odds? And that just prodded the bear too much. So Eric Young was like, yes. So I suppose it will be Crazy Steve and Black Taurus taking on Rhino and Cody Deaner because of course Joe Doring will be taking on Kojima, and I love that man's name, it keeps rhyming with everything. But hey look, if that's the rule and everybody is happy with that rule, this will be fine. Also, Violent by Design shouldn't lose. So you can do whatever you want. It was then time for our main event, which was Sami Callihan versus Moose. And I got well into this because I was like, well, this could be a pay-per-view match. Let's go. Because straight off, this was interesting because, yeah, who the hell was gonna win? Moose is the #1 contender and is meant to be having a match with Kenny Omega. But that means if Sami Callihan did get the victory here, what the hell was Impact Wrestling gonna do? Callihan actually took control in the early going here because he just surprised Moose with a shot. But you know what Moose is all about. He has turned himself into a monster, so eventually he just grabbed Sami and he was chucking him around the ring. They were then brawling all over the place because neither guy gives a flub, but throughout this wrecking, Moose somehow hurt his arm, and this started to go really bad. It meant Sami Callihan went straight for the pile driver because he smelled blood, but Moose was able to get out of that and hit the go to hell for a great near fall. But every other maneuver he tried to do, he struggled with because again, what can you do if you look like this? We then made it doubly clear that Moose is our guy because he kicked out of Sami Callihan's pile driver, and I did not see that coming, so I want to make it very clear at this juncture, this was a really good match and kind of complemented the opener because we were ending with a bang, so up. But the problem I had with it, and I totally understand it does tie into the story, is just as this was getting going, out came the Good Brothers, out came Kenny Omega, out came Don Callis, and they caused a disqualification, which means we didn't have a winner and nobody knew what to do. And I'm sorry, that's just got to get it down. It also didn't go well backstage at all because Scott D'Amore found Don Callis. He was like, what did you do that for, you buffoon? Now we're going to have to put Sami Callihan in the triple threat because you just screwed up my match. And Don Callis was like, well, you can't do that because I know that AEW's Tony Khan doesn't like Sami Callihan and he would never let Kenny Omega face him. And then it turned out that Tony Khan is going to be on Impact next week to talk about all this, and it's handy they booked him in for the appearance, otherwise he may have been busy. So that was really cool, it's an excellent cliffhanger, and I suppose we're going to do another triple threat match featuring Kenny Omega, but I just much would have preferred it if Moose had won here, and then when you get outside of Against All Odds, somehow you work Sami Callihan back into the picture, and you do a second singles match. But we didn't do that, and it doesn't matter, because from start to finish, this was a tremendous wrestling show. Thank you very much, Impact Wrestling. So overall, you can have it up. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about last night's episode of Impact. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Head on over to WhatCulture.com where you can stay up to date with wrestling. Come say hello on social media and click another video. It's good for what else, yeah. My name is Simon from WhatCulture. Thank you for joining me as always. I am going to do SmackDown and AEW tomorrow because, of course, AEW's been moved. I have ordered some new equipment. I'm going to keep everything crossed it arrives. But if not, nobody can stop me because I'm one crazy bald dude. I don't know, the CBD, can't use that, I'll get sued. See you on the next one.